Alrighty. Let's welcome United States Senator Tom Cotton to the program today in the vain hope he may be able to help us reinstill some sense of decorum to today's proceedings. Sir, how are you?
Hey, Doc. I'm doing well. I haven't listened to what preceded me, but that's quite the intro. I'm not sure I'm your guy.
Well, I just like to, if I can get a chuckle out of Tom Cotton on a Monday, I'm doing good. Look, the president announced, I guess Friday, reopening the government for 3 weeks. And, you know, we need to get the funding for the wall. We need to get border security. Kind of called Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer's bluff. How do you think this is going to work out? Are they going to have to close the government down again? Will the president have to declare a state of national emergency after 3 weeks? What do you see happening?
Doc, I lost the signal there for a moment, but it sounds like you're asking what's going to happen these next 3 weeks after the president submitted a 3 week ending to be able to open the government. I hope that the Democrats stick to their words. They've said for the last few weeks that they would be willing to negotiate in good faith about a serious border security package with the president and with congressional Republicans once the government was reopened. The government's reopened now. We have until a couple Fridays from this one to conduct those negotiations. I think everyone knows what they'll look like. There are places on our southern border where we need walls. In fact, we have a lot of walls in California, Nancy Pelosi's home state, and it's done a lot to divert the flow of illegal migrants coming across our border there. There are some places where we don't need them, where more technological solutions may enhance natural barriers, but there can be no doubt that in addition to more Border Patrol agents, better technology, more immigration judges, we need physical barriers on parts of our southern border. I hope the Democrats are willing to negotiate in good faith about that. Many of them will concede that point in private.
Right, but do you think that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer will actually negotiate in good faith if the president could see it as a win, or do you think they're just going to hunker down and we'll get to the end of 3 weeks and the president have to declare a national emergency to get the wall built?
Doc, I think it's too soon to tell. I think both Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer will certainly feel pressure from some of their Democratic rank-and-file members, the kinds of people who have said in private that they acknowledge that we need a physical barrier in certain places on our southern border. And they realize that that's a very popular position with most Americans who understand that walls and fences simply work. They work wherever you put them. They don't work alone. They need to be supplemented by proper technology and by Border Patrol agents, but they do work. So I think a lot of it depends, Doc, on the degree to which Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are listening to their voters back home, and especially their rank-and-file members who are certainly hearing from their voters back home.
Right. Now, a lot of my listeners are very concerned, very frustrated with Mitch McConnell sticking with the 60-vote rule in the U.S. Senate. They know it's not in the Constitution, it's not federal law, but it is a long-standing Senate majority. And the idea that you can't get anything done unless you have all 53 Republicans and then 7 Democrats, it really frustrates my listeners. I hear about it on a regular basis. Your thoughts?
No, I hear those frustrations as well, Doc, and sometimes I feel those frustrations. I would simply say, though, to all those listeners who express those frustrations now, that it's not the appropriate time to be thinking about that kind of drastic changes to the Senate's rules because we have Nancy Pelosi in charge of the House of Representatives. So even if we pass bills on a party line vote in the Senate, they wouldn't go to the president because Nancy Pelosi's Democratic House almost certainly wouldn't bring them up. What I do support, what I've always supported, whether we have a Republican House or a Democratic House, Republican president or Democratic president, is simply enforcing the Senate rules as they're written. Today, we allow too many senators to get off easy when they want to, quote-unquote, filibuster a piece of legislation to block it from passing. Remember, a filibuster was supposed to be open-ended, unlimited debate. That means talking. That means engaging your fellow senators in debate. If you turn on C-SPAN, though, when a so-called filibuster is going on, Doc, you realize the Senate floor is usually empty. So I support the strict interpretation and enforcement of Senate rules that require people who want to filibuster legislation to actually marshal their fellow senators to hold the floor 24 hours a day to make sure that they are doing what they say they want to do, which is to have a real debate. Because right now we have kind of upended the historical purpose of a filibuster, which was to say, no, we need to slow things down. We haven't debated long enough. So as a way to actually stop debate on a piece of legislation. And that's not what we ought to be doing in what used to be called the world's greatest deliberative body.
Right, right. Now, we're hearing today in the news talk of peace talks with the Taliban. I'm sure the overwhelming majority of Americans want to come home from Afghanistan, but at the same time, how can you actually have peace talks with an enemy that is not just totally defeated and thinks that, you know, they're supposed to kill us because they're infidels? What do you see going on with this?
I share those reservations, Doc. I recognize that you have to have peace talks with enemies. It's usually better if those enemies are vanquished enemies. That's not fully the case yet with the Taliban. It largely was the case years ago, but they have had a resurgence. So I approach it with a degree of skepticism, as I think anyone should. But for that matter, as I know that Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and our chief envoy Zalmay Khalilzad are approaching it. This is not their first rodeo in these instances, and I don't think that they would accept a bad deal. If we can get a good deal that secures the region and ensures that Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State and other terrorist organizations can't use it once again as a launching pad for attacks against the United States, then that would be a good thing for our troops and for our nation. But we cannot let that country slip back into the hands of an enemy that will allow those terrorist groups to take root.
All right, Senator Tom Cotton, I know you have to leave in about 30 seconds. What do you think about the Supreme Court and President Trump's transgender military ban?
I think the Supreme Court took a prudent action. The president issued this order about a year and a half ago. Secretary Mattis was working through the implementation of it. Lower courts, as they've often done for this president, made a hasty nationwide injunction to stop that from going forward. The Supreme Court recognized this is in the president's inherent constitutional authority as commander-in-chief, and that there'll be a time to litigate this on the merits all the way up to the Supreme Court, I would assume.
All right, very good. United States Senator Tom Cotton, please come see us in studio next time you're in town. We appreciate you. God bless you. Appreciate your service to our country.
Thank you, Doc. Take care.
Thank you.